In today's video, I'm having a look at the Aussie New Zealand. I'm also going to be looking at the S&P500. In addition to that, we're going to be talking a little bit about Westpac. Hello and welcome to another ACY Securities Market Update. My name is Alistair Schultz and I'm going to be your host through today's trading journey. The first thing I'm looking at today is I'm going to give you a bit of a virus update. We have more than 22 million infections globally and 779 deaths so far. Now, of course, we are expecting these numbers to continue to rise, even though we do have some hopes of the vaccine. Now, moving on, the first thing I've looked at today is the Aussie New Zealand. Now, this is a monthly chart I've got up behind me. We've seen it touch just above our most recent trend line on the high side that has been sitting there for the last sort of 5 years. Now, interestingly enough, the reason I'm looking at this with particular interest is the differing monetary policy between the RBNZ, or Reserve Bank of New Zealand, and the Reserve Bank of Australia, or the RBA. Now, the RBNZ is looking to adopt negative interest rates. They have mentioned it in their last monetary policy report. Today, we've gotten a little bit more understanding, or at least some expectations, not from the RBNZ themselves, but from some external sources. Now, the expectation right now is to see 40 basis cut between now and potentially June 2021. Now, of course, the RBA has already indicated that they are not going to be going below 0.25%, even though they have the capability of getting to 0.15%, and they have been sternly saying we're not going to adopt negative interest rates. So this leaves us with a very interesting situation for the Australasian currencies. We have the New Zealand dollar, who are likely going to be impacted by negative interest rates, with the only other country to really adopt that over the number of years recently that's got a good example is Japan. Other countries have implemented it, but the effects on Japan have been well documented, particularly because they've been adopting it for such a long time. Now, that means that we might see the Australian dollar rise against the New Zealand dollar for an extensive period of time. At this point in time, we are looking to see it rise before the end of the year, with the target range for next year to be between 1.13 and 1.19. Now, moving on, Westpac has cut its dividend in half. The other banks that are around, or its competitors, have basically deferred. So they're not offering to pay out a dividend, but they're also not offering to change it. So shares have fallen 2.3%. We've got it now at $17.18 per share. And that is quite cheap in my perspective. We've also got $574 million that they've put aside for bad debt absorption. So all of those mortgages, all of those business loans, all of those deferred payments, that's where that money is going to be going towards. We've also seen them narrow their profit margins, and they're being a little bit more conservative than what we see at CBA, ANZ and NAB, which is probably to some a nicer picture to look at when it comes to considering which of the big four you might decide to put some of your money into. Now, moving on, the S&P 500, it's had another stellar day. We've seen it actually break that record high I was talking about yesterday. They're now sitting at a 52% gain for the year since the drops in March. Now, that surpassing the February high is also an effect on its own that is quite interesting to have a look at. I'm hoping that we do see a little bit more action out of it. Considering the nature of tech, the economy in the US starting to pick up a little bit of pace, and of course consumer spending picking up, I would anticipate that we're still going to see it moving up long. I'm not ready to bet against the S&P 500 just yet. But who knows, I might have to keep my eye on it a little bit closer considering how much of a gain it's had this year. It should be due for something to happen soon enough. Now, looking at earnings season, this week, today, we have Nvidia Corp, we have carsales.com, A2 Milk Company, and Tabcorp. Now, for tomorrow, the big ones to watch for are Alibaba Group and, of course, Qantas. So keep an eye on those. I am quite curious. I generally like Nvidia as a technology company purely because they are into the chip manufacturing side of things and graphics cards. So that's quite widely used, especially with the growth of gaming over the last 12 months while everyone's been locked down at home. Now, in addition to that, the other ones that we see on this list are the Australian stocks. A2, Carsales, and Tabcorp are all on ASX listings, so keep an eye on that. Obviously, Qantas is as well. And Alibaba is one that we all want to keep an eye on because it's such a big e-commerce company that is rivaling Amazon. Now, having a look at the news ahead of today, we have UK CPI and PPI. We also have Euro CPI, and there are still ongoing OPEC meetings all throughout the day. Now, when it comes to these OPEC meetings that we're seeing, the OPEC versus the JMC, they are literally a tentative announcement. They generally don't report on everything from their meeting until the meeting has finished, and it's going to be going on for quite some time, it looks like. Be aware that you might see some officials step out of the office and give a little bit of information that they might have just briefly discussed whilst in the meeting, and that can affect the valuation of oil. What we're looking at this OPEC meeting is to see whether they're going to cut or increase production, because at this point in time, we're leaning towards the cut side, but there are some things getting in the way of that being a possibility. In addition to all of that, we also have Canadian CPI today, and later tonight, the FOMC minutes from their last meeting. So all of those are going to be important to keep an eye on throughout your day. Of course, the other factor on here is we've already had some Japanese announcements come out on their trade balance, which showed that they had a bit more deficit than normal. But outside of that, we should be continuing to look at what the Japanese situation is, and of course, some of the important data that's going to be coming out over the next couple of days. Now, if there's anything from today's video, my other videos, or anything in between that you'd like to get in contact with me about, please feel free to shoot me an email at talk2al@acy.com. And of course, don't forget to like and subscribe this video so you can get more great content from me and ACY Securities in the future. Have a great trading day ahead.